See over there? What you see over there? See the chickens? See those chickens over there? Or you rather have that? What you do with that? What you do with that? Where did you get that cuteness from? Where did you get that cuteness from? Your mommy or your daddy?
Both. Yes, kind of both.
Are you gonna smile? Are you gonna smile?
She's like, oh, I got my new pen. Oh, there you go.
That's a girl. Oh, there's a little dog around there that she'd probably love.
Oh yeah, we saw him. Like,
Yeah. There's a rabbit over there that she'd probably flip for.
Yeah, she was looking at it. We were just.
Oh yeah, she'd probably flip for Flower. And she's only 6 months old. Imagine at a full year, if she continues to grow, she'll put probably put a Polish giant to shame. Yeah, I saw once on ARL, and they are huge, but you know.
They're really friendly too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she like cuts up. I was just telling Jill that she cuts up like carrots and celery and apples, and the rabbit just loves all of it, and it'll pick out its favorite kind all the time. It's really cute.
And I mean, she's such a beautiful white too.
She is a really pretty rabbit. She's really fluffy.
He's got some.
Yeah, I know a local here who raises chickens, and one had some chickens, but she had a garage fire, and she was keeping them in the garage out of the cold, and she lost. One of the chickens tried to escape and hid in one of the playsets outside, but you know, when that melted, the hot plastic got on her feathers, and
That's a bummer.
yeah, she was the only one who survived it though.
Oh.
So did you follow a plan to create a little chicken house?
And then he is helping us this time, has helped us this time, and then Julie is here with her. Reach out to us and let us know like where. Are we working for
I'm actually going to put my phone down and in front of one of these water bottles. I'm going to take a chat. Keep hitting up my chat. Let me know how my stream is doing. But I'm going to put my phone down. I'm going to pull my tablet out, and I'm going to shoot it so I can upload them later. In the meantime, enjoy the view.
I've got it unplugged. I'll plug it in. Let me know when you guys want to plug it.
yeah, no worries.
Not on the sign. You know, I remember. I never saw it. I'm kind of old school.
Up and coming type of farmer. I'm constructing a ground up hill that's going to be 5 feet with access points. It's going to be 60 foot long.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah.
There's going to be 2 tiers. The top peak is going to be shrubs that produce overcast. Don't know what I'm going to choose right now, but I'll know what I do. Anything that has a high pH. The concept is basically taking the painting and literally creating a whole little building. Just what am I thinking? A community of plants that network the sunny side of my hill over to the shade side, down to my fruit hill. I've got 2 fruit trees on one side of it. I'm taking them. They should all work together. And where the 2 come together, I've got one that's right here, and then I've got a strip right here. In this right here, it's got shit on the ground. I'm going to put a wall on it. So I can put red worms. The earthworm that I put in there goes down and up into it as I feed it. And it'll feed water at the edge of my vermes, at the edge of my garden. I'm going to drill holes in the bottom of this water, so it's going to be sitting flat on the ground. As I feed and water it, they're going to want to come down when it gets hot and come back up when it's cooler to get the food. So no redwoods. I will be testing. I've been doing a lot of reading on it. They say why you don't want to do earthworms. There you go. Because it's
You want some too? You want to do it yourself?
But my box isn't necessarily I'm at the very base level. Like I have only tilled my ground. I have
Pictures that I will. Wasn't it over there? Someone was trying to look for a staple gun to fix some signs of falling. I also have my spare battery. And I have my power pack. I did buy a new power pack. So that if my battery gets low, I can either plug in to my power pack or I can just change batteries. Or if my phone gets too hot, which apparently the Galaxy S4 has a tendency to do. And I did warn one of my friends who just got one that can get too warm occasionally and to check the phone temperature. So when my phone gets too warm, I back off of using it.
All right, you got that on?
Mike has been brought out here.
She lives out where she has a lot of space, so they just kind of do a little welcoming committee. They come. Look at the little tagger coming. Say hello.
Hello, yeah. Good looking. Who's a pretty girl?
Buttercup.
Who's a pretty girl? Buttercup.
They're awake now.
Yeah, they're awake now. They eat and eat and eat, and then they get so tired.
Would you guys like a snack?
Sure.
Hey, Buttercup. Want to smile for my viewers? Hmm?
Oh, these are birds and pets.
Of course, chickens peck. That's what they do.
That's right, a little bit.
Are they her chicks?
Thank you.
I'll get you some. No.
Thank you.
Those aren't Buttercup's chicks?
No, Mooney, this is Mooney. She's Moonflower.
Oh.
They're not her babies. There's 5 different breeds here, so they all came from different mothers. This one is a barred rock. They're really common and easy to find.
Yeah.
The black one is a black Australorb.
What's a mottled brown?
She is a golden laced Wyandotte, and that would be your buttercup, the little gold-headed one.
Oh.
The little white-headed one is a silver laced Wyandotte, and her name is Lily. They're all flowers. We got 8 more at home, all different breeds. Thank you, honey. That's very sweet of you.
Yes, would you like a little bit more popcorn? We have one of these little trays that we can put some popcorn in.
I'm okay. I know the girls would like some.
Should I get some?
You want to feed them one?
Yeah, if they're organic, they would probably go nuts for
They
these.
love popcorn.
Only the best for you girls, right?
That's right. She's a big girl. She's a
Yeah.
giant. That's her race, or her breed. She's a giant blue coaching. Giant. You feed them, honey. They eat popcorn. They love popcorn.
All right, we would like to thank you all for coming out today and supporting us. We know that there's been some controversy that we are not actually marching this time. But we
so
kind of
what?
wanted to see what we could do to get a different crowd so we could make some positive changes in our food system. Does that make sense to everybody? Are you with me? All right, we do need to get the GMOs cleaned up, but at the same time, being militant about it isn't going to change anything. People coming together and learning how to make change is what's going to get us further and get the GMO problem solved. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you the partners who have helped me make this possible. Crystal England, my right-hand chick, been up with her since 5:30 in the morning the last 3 nights in a row. Give it up. Her house is a mess. That's our fault. Julie? Julie? Where's my Julie?
Right there.
Julie Jeffries. Give it up for this woman. Chicken tractor. Love this girl. Tore up her entire yard and grows her own food. Yeah. Adrian Wade, where are you at? Design my posters. I love you. Dawn. Morning Rain Massage. Hoop it up DSM. Has the ghost over there. Thank you. Now, I'm going to let Crystal take the mic. Thank you all for coming out and making this possible. I appreciate you.
Well, I don't have much to add to what Lissa said.
You turn it off.
I don't know how to turn it back on. What happened? Oh, sorry, I must have turned it off when I moved it. I don't have much more to add to what Lissa said, except a great, big, heartfelt gratitude for all of you for taking our idea, what started out as just a phone call between Lissa and I, into this day and making it happen. Everyone for volunteering and coming out and helping, thank you so much. Illuminate Yoga, thank you for being here all day helping us set this all up. There is one thing I would like to add is that the Iowa Right to Know campaign, we're not just a group of concerned citizens, we are a group of concerned mothers. And there is nothing that can stop a group of super driven mothers. We are here today to show you all how we make these changes because we believe in empowerment through education. So instead of standing up here and talking to you for an hour about all the reasons why you shouldn't eat GMOs, I want to show you how to plant your own seeds, how to sprout your own seeds, how to make seed bombs. Help us spread this message in a positive and fun way today. Thank you all for coming.
All right, first up, Bob Strait, Crop Scout here from Iowa State University. Give it up.
Okay, I need to clarify something. Not Iowa State University, independent agronomist.
Excuse me. I had it wrong in the email, and that's what I've been telling
If you
everybody.
work for Iowa State, you can't make this talk. I'll find that out. No, I work up in the Ames area. My wife and I, she's in the red clothes over there, live west of Ames. And I was involved in first GMO research. It looked like a way to probably clean up the soybean fields. And I worked in southwest Kansas for 4 years, and an insect that migrated over here from Europe called the European corn borer was a severe problem. So it came about, and now it's become more of a money maker and I think a power-driven program that they're on. And this is seated in some old politics, but a guy named Henry Kissinger said if you control the energy, you control the country. If you control the food, you control the people. And I think that's what's going on. So what I'll do is go through a few things that I've learned. I work with a guy named Don Huber, quite a few other people. The past 6 months, I've been in Hawaii twice, working with them on their initiatives, and they got some laws passed. Introduced a product, our idea, and helped start the bill in the Iowa State Legislature a year ago. I'm helping on the Colorado labeling bill, and some of us have been out in California and in Washington State. And I've said all along, too, the group that the biotech companies don't want to tick off are the mothers. And a lot of people have asked me, aren't you afraid of Monsanto's 450 lawyers? And I'll say I'd sooner face 450 lawyers than 45 million mad mothers. Because mothers, what they want for dinner, if they're mad, is jugular meat, and they'll get it. So there's a study done. How many of you have heard of a lady named Zen Honeycutt? She's down in San Diego. She started a group called Mothers Across America. And just as a little experiment, she had people take samples of their own urine, sent it to a lab down in St. Louis run by Bruce Hemming, who's a good person. He actually ran the microbial and biological division of Monsanto until Rob Fraley came in, and then he got booted out the door. So that was right when his wife was dying from cancer, without a job, wife dying of cancer, had to meet the medical bills. So he runs a very good bacteriology Q&A lab in St. Louis for the pharmaceutical, the food, and the cosmetic businesses in the Midwest. And he's doing the glyphosate analysis for food and other products using the Abraxas kit out of Philadelphia. But they were sending samples of their own urine in, like they've done in Europe, and they're finding out what the level was of glyphosate in their urine. And a bunch of the women that are in the group actually sent in their own breast milk, and they found fairly high levels in 30% of the milk samples. So to me, there's no good explanation, there's no good excuse for having that show up. But it basically showed how much is showing up in the food, and it is coming from a lot of different sources. Now, when we introduced the bill into the Iowa State Legislature, we handle a bunch of different micronutrients that farmers use to put on their crops that are getting diseased because of lack of micronutrients. So I had this on the counter to see if the micronutrient dry powder from Belgium would dissolve, and I happened to have it sitting on the counter yet in the kitchen at home, and I grabbed it as a prop to head down there. And Howard Vlieger, who was supposed to be here first, couldn't do it because his granddaughter had a birthday party today. But anyhow, Howard talked first and I got up. When I started my talk, I took the cap off and I handed it around, and I said, I've got a bottle of dark colored liquid here. I won't tell you what's in it, but if you feel okay, like it's a college party, want to take a drink, go ahead, no problem. But if you're kind of worried about it because you don't know quite what's in here, just pass it on. So it went down the list of about 20 people, all the legislators, all the lobbyists. No one took a drink. I said I did it just to prove a point. And that point is, your natural instinct is if you don't know it's safe, or if it's not safe, you're not going to consume it. And ask, how is that any different than a person going through the grocery store, picking up different items of food? You should get to know. Now, I thought in Oregon and California they screwed up a little bit because they didn't say exactly what the right to know was. So I had to write 7 different things down that went out to Colorado, and I said it's a right to determine how safe your food is. It's a right to know what's going to affect your kid's health. It's a right to know something else, and tell me the good excuse you have for mother's breast milk showing up with glyphosate in it. Give me one good reason. And it took, Zen posted that on their website over the weekend, I think 3 weeks ago. By Monday morning, there were 2 people from Monsanto at Bruce Hemming's office of his laboratory. And they wanted to grade him, downgrade him. He sat them down. He said, listen, I was a sector head within your company for 25 years. I had office right next to the president. I did their chemistry for them. Now here's what I did. And I'll invite you to leave. And they walked with their tail between their legs because they knew he knew more than they did. And there was no good excuse. But it took them 2 weeks to come up with any sort of excuse for why that might happen. When they did, it was the biggest bunch of gobbledygook I've ever heard. Now, a lot of you over the next couple weeks, you're going to want to go to the grocery store, and you're probably going to see this on the shelf. You're going to pull it down and think, boy, that looks good, I'm ready to eat it. Well, hopefully we get home in time today. We plant our garden. We've got 3 gardens. We got 3 or 4 berry patches. We've got 60 fruit trees, so we grow a lot of what we own. The meat we eat comes from a clean herd up in northern Iowa, where I grew up, and we get beef from a guy that raises it himself with non-GMO grain. But I happen to call the produce buyers from the 2 major grocery stores in Iowa, one office in Ames or Des Moines, one up in Boone, and asked to get a return phone call from their produce buyer. And I asked them, do you know where you get your food, your sweet corn from? Right now it'd be down around Homestead, Florida. And I asked, do you know if it's conventional or if it's GMO? And the one person that did call me back said, I don't know, I didn't ask the broker. I said, could you please do that? And he said, why? He asked why. I said, because probably over the next week, you're going to have 200 to 1,000 people call you up and ask you if it's conventional or if it's GMO. And you probably want to have a good answer for them. So I guess what I assign you the task of, call the corporate office for Hy-Vee and Fairway this next week and ask them, because if they are forced to get soy or corn from someone that grew it conventionally, I think they'll make the change and do it, and the word is going to start spreading. Now that's why that's important is the USDA okayed the cultivation of GMO or Roundup Ready alfalfa. And I was with Don over in Hawaii last fall. We got a phone call, or he had gotten a phone call the previous day from a large beef rancher in Colorado, and he bought a bunch of Roundup Ready alfalfa that came from a producer in Nebraska. The guy had a problem with kochia, so he sprayed the alfalfa several times with Roundup glyphosate to kill the kochia. When he fed that alfalfa, the buyer did not ask what kind it was. By the next day, he had 50 dead cows in his pasture. The next day there were another 50. The third day there were 60. The net value and loss in the first 3 days to the rancher was over $382,000, and the hay producer, his insurance company, is going to have to cover it. Now, the EPA allowed an increase in the level of glyphosate in all the different food products. I've got it over at our table, and it was published in the SAMCell incentive paper number 2. But hay that cattle eat, the allowable level is 400 part per million. The level at which it affects people and what's in, and the microbes in their stomach is 0.1 part per million.
That's
so the
sick.
level is 4,000 times higher than what's going to cause problems. Now, when they first started doing genetic engineering, there are a few things that they didn't understand. One was that all of us have 2 to 5 pounds of bacteria in our stomach. They call it the microbiome. Now, 15 years ago, they did not know that existed. And what they're finding out, those bacteria in your gut help to digest the food, and then they also are responsible for pulling the minerals out of it. Now, the minerals that are in there are responsible for keeping your body healthy, running your immune system, keeping your hormone levels in balance, also influencing your mental acuity and mental thoughts, and also the German scientists and medical doctors have done a lot of work. When you get those screwed up, that's when you end up with autism. Now, I work with a group of agronomists that have made the connection between good, healthy soil, healthy crops, and healthy people. And 2 years ago in January, we had a meeting over towards Iowa City, and anyhow, Roger Farley and his wife were up there. They had a young 7-year-old autistic son with them, and he was extremely rambunctious, very disruptive, and they just couldn't control him, and we felt sorry for them. But they walked around the room, and they visited quite a few people. What do you think we should do to maybe help our son? And we talked about maybe changing diet a little bit, well, quite a bit. We said take the processed food away, take the high fructose corn syrup away, take all the MSG away, and clean the diet up a lot. And they did that on the way home back to near Columbia, Missouri, and the kid protested quite a bit. Now the kid was not a normal school anymore. They couldn't control him, and he wasn't learning, and he wouldn't look anyone in the eye. But 3 days after they made the change, the young son looked his dad right in the eye and said, "My stomach doesn't hurt anymore." And one of the people he visited with, one was Dr. Arden Anderson, who's written books called Real Medicine, Real Health, which goes right along with the message that Socrates said, "Let your food be your medicine." Another person was Richard Ulrey, who's a chiropractor and mineralogist. He wrote a book called Minerals from the Genetic Code. He suggested changing the diet also. But the parents sent Richard a Christmas card a year ago, and they sent him a picture of his son driving a go-kart around a go-kart track. The kid was back in normal school, and there were 42 other students in his grade. He was 7th from the top, getting almost all A's and a few B's back in normal school. Completely reversed autism. Because they had screwed up the gut and his bacteria, the pesticides have. Let's see, human health. If anyone likes, I've got different papers that I could email to you. The Samsell incentive ones are very good. Anthony Samsell is an environmental chemist up in New Hampshire, and he works along with Stephanie Seneff. She's a head chemist at MIT. Very good biochemist, and they relate contaminants in the food being the principal cause of most chronic human diseases. Now, did I mention Terry Walls earlier? I asked her if she thought maybe when she changed her diet, that life stayed out of it. She said she hadn't thought about it, but she said, yes, that's probably it. But Samsell and Seneff, they basically relate glyphosate in the diet, in the water, being the principal cause of cancer, autism, obesity, celiac disease, multiple sclerosis, and quite a few different things. If you want those papers, I will email those. 30 pages, heavy reading each, but a lot of times your life may depend on it, literally and figuratively. Now, we're working some with the Vet College at Iowa State, and I think the National Animal Disease Lab. Major problem right now in Europe and also in the Midwest is chronic botulism in cattle. And these cattle basically will stumble around, they bloat, they get very gaunt, and then their eyes bug out. And in some dairy herds in Illinois and beef herds in Wisconsin and Iowa, these cattle just came in over fire. These cattle, if they start to get sick, they get rushed to the marketplace and they get slaughtered, turned into hamburger, turned into roast beef, and they get put in the human food supply. We want to try to keep that out of there. And again, the major problem is we're killing off the good bugs in their gut. We think in honeybees, it's the same thing. Now, where the Roundup is showing up, there's about 800 million pounds of it applied per year worldwide. And it doesn't just disappear. When it's put in the soil, it ties up, and it's freed up again sometime over the next 8 to 22 years. So it's got a very long half-life. If you consume it, we're trying to find out how much stays in you, how much do you excrete. And that's probably where the glyphosate urine test comes in. Bruce Hemming is still continuing to do that for $90 a sample, which is a good bargain. If people are interested, it's worth doing it. I'm working with another company up at Utah State University Med School. We're trying to come out with a cheap, quick, easy, accurate strip test that would do the same thing for maybe $10 per sample. And that way, anyone could test any food, any drink.
Do you know yet if anybody's tested with it positive, and then after changing the diet, how quickly
We haven't really done that yet. I talked to Arden Anderson about doing that and to write a protocol for us. One way that we get out of the system is we'll have to also check water supplies. You know, we've been with talking about this. He's got a number of farm families that have shallow wells up in the Manchester, Iowa area. And all these farmers that have shallow wells, they've got either themselves or some of their family members have cancer. I've got a friend, we were at their kid's graduation last Sunday, and he's been up to Mayo Clinic and had a bunch of parts cut out, and it's back, and I'm sure it's because it's in his water. So they've got a farm place where the ground all slopes in, and it's getting in as well, I'm sure. I turned the water sample in, haven't got the results back yet. But Carol, could you hold up that pipe? I've got a friend out in California. He's PhD, and he's made a small water filter, which in Zen's trial, it was the only one in the whole country that pulled the glyphosate out of the water. Because if you clean up your food supply, you still have to take care of the water. For drinking and for bathing, because the biggest organ of the body is still the skin. So look up Personova Inc. on the lab. Good friend, he's over working in Japan this week with a group of scientists. But we're going to try to get some literature out on that. So what I'm saying is, know your food. Remember who you're going to call this week. Ivy, Dolls, and Fairway. Talk to your produce manager. A lot of this is just know your people, know what your rights are. Your right is not to get poisoned. And if the people do not know what is in the food that they're selling to you, ask about it. You've got the human right to know, and then it's partially up to you to also accept the ability to make those changes and make the conscious decision to eat better. That might mean having to raise it yourself, know exactly how it's being raised. With that, any other questions? Okay, I've got my card over there. If anyone has some other questions, glad to be here today.
Thank you, Bob. So, now I hope you begin to question things before you just plant a seed. Now, that's also going to bring me to the next point of our bees. Without bees, we don't really have very much selection at the grocery store, and I like to eat from the land of plenty and play in my kitchen. So personally, I don't spray creepy chemicals on my victory garden because I want the bees to come and help pollinate so I can have more food. Next up, Jason Foley.
After we move
Foley's Russian bees.
Oh. They're gonna reposition the sound system a little bit before the speaker starts. So that'll take a couple of minutes. So in the meantime, go ahead and give me a check in my chat. Tell me how my signal's doing. Am I doing okay? Am I pixelating? Am I looping on myself? Or whatever. Is my audio okay? I'm trying to block the wind when the wind gusts up to try to cut down some of the wind noise. Oh. There you go, you got it.
Hello. As you mentioned, I'm Jason Foley of Foley's Russian Bees. I'm also one of the master beekeepers at the University of Florida, and I'm with the Iowa Honey Producers. And I'm much shorter than most of these talkers. No, it's okay. Today's talk, I was asked to come here and speak about the direct effects of neonicotinoids and GMO products that are affecting the beekeeping industry out there. In no way is today's talk a direct threat or is meant to in any way upset people about maybe their ways of life or anything like that. So I just like to throw that out there, that I'm only presenting the facts relating around things. Also, I'm trying to get a lot of information out in a 20-minute period. So, why do bees die? Well, why do humans die? For tons and tons of reasons. Bees die of old age. They die when somebody squishes them. They die when they eat pesticides. They die when a bird eats them. Today's talk with the pesticide part is to basically discuss some of the falsehoods and the rat race that our society has set up for the farming industry with their neonicotinoid products and etc. Over 100 years ago, there were no pesticides in the United States. We just had smaller farming communities. We did not have the monocultures that we had today. We had mixed farm products. The average farmer would go to a farmer's market and have 15, 30 products that he was trying to sell. Now today, when you go across the United States and you hit Iowa and Missouri and some of our neighboring states, pretty much all you see is just giant fields of corn or soybean or alfalfa. You just hit these huge monocultures, which is only one source of nutrition out there for any given species that's trying to live there. That rat race basically got started around the part when pesticides came out. They gave an initial boost to farmers. So if you were the first farmer out there that got a pesticide, your crops performed, let's say, 20% better that year. You got more yield on it. When fertilizers came out, et cetera, you got this boost. Well, the problem there was that if you saw, let's say, a 5% boost, your neighbor saw a 5% boost, everybody saw a 5% boost, prices in the market didn't then decline 5% because there was 5% more product. Instead, a bidding war would happen and prices would go down 20%. So yeah, first few farmers that got out there, huge boost to their economy that year. Next year, when all the farmers had it, that meant that you had to basically find more land to try and sell your products on, because the price of your corn or your soybeans dropped 20% when you were only making 5% more. And that's pretty much what's been on for the last 100 years. You know why a farmer has 200 acres that's all corn, or 500 acres and he does part of it for soybeans and part of it for corn and goes and rotates them back and forth. Man is really good at seeing the short-term picture of things and trying to fix it. Picture it as your spouse out there that, you've got a problem with your car, your bumper's falling off, and he decides to fix it with duct tape. He doesn't realize, that duct tape is going to fall off in a 100-mile-per-hour wind and go through somebody else's windshield, or, we just only think about the immediate fix of our problem, not the long-term ramifications of what could happen when we do stuff. We've industrialized farming. We've added chemicals, we've done GMO, we've created monocultures. And as I've said, basically to fix that, the farmers had to just go bigger and bigger and bigger. A lot of people are afraid of trying to switch out of that industry and go back to smaller farms, go back to trying to have multiple crops and etc. About the only way a person that they're Instead of them losing 20% on their crops for the price when they only were producing 5% more, they lost 5% of their crops and prices went up 20%. Similar studies happened in France. And essentially here in the United States, if we were able to force the switch into another form of farming, or simply do away with neonicotinoids or any certain subject matter there, then it would be fair for everybody, and the industry it's not a $1 billion loss like the that's not a real deep subject to go into. Essentially, a product, and you keep genetically modifying it over and over again to get a bigger it loses a produce actually that happened, and bees just stopped basically foraging on that plant. You can see that basically in all of your guys' backyards if you have a flower garden. The flowers in, the blossom heightened, blooming. All of those flowers basically don't produce nectar anymore, and the pollens that they produce are pretty dumbed down. A lot of those plants you can't get into your yard and have seeds in them. You have to just make a laboratory created seed, and then you get to go yourself in your yard. Those products are not usable by bees anymore. Fortunately, there's no difference on a colony of bees. Come up to take a big tobacco. Points out here that's affecting that same deal. Nicotinoids is on bees. The well, there's very little that the all its own been able to do to force that hand. Other countries have stepped up, like Italy and Europe last year went ahead and signed a ban on neonicotinoids for going out for a 2-year period to see how that lasts. The initial studies on neonicotinoids, the tests weren't really set up fair for how they would handle with bees. There was a panel of people brought together that weren't beekeepers, did not know how the bees basically operate, their habits, the way they go, and they only did a first-year study on it. That first-year study basically had an area of a few acres and set up beehives around it and had a dose of neonicotinoids that the industry thought was a safe amount. At that time, it was a lot greater than what they even will allow these days. What they didn't know about bees is if you put them next to a crop that's not already producing a high amount of nectar or pollen that they want, they're going to fly somewhere else. They're going to skip over fields of corn, over fields of whatever you plant. if they're in the field of, let's say, clover, so by not really having insight into the bees' habits, those tests were already set up to fail right off the bat. Because if the bees aren't going to plants that they were wanting to do the safety studies on, then true representation of what those chemicals are going to do in the long run. They also, because it was only a one-year study, did not get to see the compounding facts of neonicotinoids, which, as most of you probably already know, they stay in the ground and they build up over time. And especially in the case of honeybees, when the bee brings that back, brings back the pollen that's adhered to their body, it's absorbed into the wax of their colony. And they get concentrations of it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, however long that colony can hold on. It just keeps building up concentrations in the wax. Where do bees go ahead and raise their young? They raise them in wax cells. So basically these developing, very fragile larvae are sitting in a cesspool of any chemicals that are brought into that hive, especially chemicals that don't break down and just sit there year after year after year. Some of the ways the bees get exposed to neonicotinoids is obviously the pollen. The bee's body structurally is built up like the bee just flies the air, basically the air. That's not the baskets that you see on their legs, but just a bee passing by a cornfield or having a breeze blowing off of a cornfield is going to pick up all that pollen because their bodies are static electrically charged. In the mornings, when bees go out and forage, plants go ahead and have a type of dew that they sweat from the pores of them. Studies have shown that moisture that comes out of the leaves and the stalks of the plants do actually have trace elements of neonicotinoids in it. And it only takes 1 part per billion to be lethal to a bee. So even those small trace amounts can have a lasting effect on a colony. It breaks into other types of neonicotinoids. Gets tons and tons of concentrations of neonicotinoids built up into it, and it's very prone to being airborne. So if there's and actually any colonies in that direct path, the problem that they can actually cause is not necessarily bee related, but the overuse of any sort of pesticide can actually make soil inert. And when soil becomes inert, it's sort of like Bob was talking about there about the bacteria in our own guts. Well, if you've ever had the flu, or I guess the flu's not a good choice, but a cold where you took antibiotics and you took too many antibiotics, had to make where they normally would. Well, when soil becomes inert, it kills all of the microbes that are in it. It kills the good funguses. It kills the good bacteria. It kills all of the good stuff along with the bad stuff. And when you have none of the good stuff in there, you aren't getting the nutrients. You aren't getting the minerals. You aren't getting any of the other